I think we're good. Just got back from an 8-mile run. Finished my 700 deep body squats. I only got through 147 of my pull-ups, so I'll do the last 53 when the show's over. I just ran out of time. It's just my usual Saturday morning routine. This is my only real Saturday morning routine. Morning, Tom, Carrie, Brian. Welcome, everyone. Ted, good to see you. Saturday or Monday, we are in for getting another blizzard here in Cincinnati, so we'll see what happens. I think there's a mad scramble to get plenty of bread and milk and toilet paper. So welcome, everyone, to the Saturday morning sunrise sober celebration. I can't even remember, from the Philippines. JC, great to have you. Derek. Anyways, second of our Saturday morning, 8 o'clock weekend starter, which is perfect. I really like this. Is great. Welcome to Sober Talk. You're here because you want to get sober. You need to get sober. Perhaps you're sober curious, or you just want to hear a fantastic guest that I have on this morning. Great story, though. You'll hear. How do you know if you have a drug or alcohol problem? Good indication is that you're tuning into this show. So that's whatever the reason, though, we're just glad you're here. It's going to be a fun little broadcast. I did want to start off this weekend. I got a really nice phone call yesterday from a really nice person that I wanted to thank, but I couldn't. They wouldn't give me their name before they hung up. But I didn't realize that my car warranty was about to expire. And so they were so sweet, but it kind of brought something up. I wrote some notes down, so I'm going to just kind of read them. And again, this is me not talking to you. This is more me talking to the mirror. But if you know, bad things usually happen when I drink. What would my life look like if alcohol got its way? If I need to be able to identify alcohol for me is that scam artist, that telemarketer, Tom, reference to you, that's going to call and come across as someone that's out to help me, someone that's got a smile on their face, that's warm, that's welcoming, that's got great ideas, that's got a solution for my problems. Whatever the case, whether it's fixing my car or my computer spyware, whatever it is, they come across as a true friend that is going to say anything, promise anything to get in the door with me, so that they can get my personal information and basically rob me blind. So the question, if alcohol got my way, what would my life look like? Well, for one, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. I'd be probably hugging a toilet somewhere, regretting what I did yesterday. I wouldn't have a wife upstairs. I wouldn't have some kids that I will hopefully be seeing later today. Alcohol affects people differently. Alcohol, the bad side of alcohol, I don't know what you want to call it, the beast, the evil one, the wolf in sheep's clothing, is a hunter, and it's looking for weak prey. And for whatever reason, because it has successfully identified me as weaker than most when it comes to alcohol, it singled me out in the crowd, and it has been smart in putting its full effort into targeting the weaker, just like the lions do to a herd of gazelles or zebras or whatever you want to say. They find the weaker one and go after it. I have to be able to see alcohol for what it truly is, because at the door, when it rings the doorbell or calls me on the phone, it comes across as the most sweet, loving, helpful, want to be a part of my life. I got to be able to see it for me. What it is it's a liar, it's a thief, it's a murderer, it's a family destroyer, it's a marriage destroyer, a job destroyer. I've got to be able to see what it is and identify it, because right now I do a very poor job of not seeing that wolf inside sheep's clothing. So when I open the door and see alcohol, I don't see the evilness of it. I see a long lost friend that's carrying a basket of cookies and happiness, and I usually welcome him in. So it's something I think I need to be able to look past the commercials and the happiness and the joy that I see sitting around the tailgate or sitting around the fire on the beach, whatever, because that's not that's what alcohol wants me to see it as. But the truth, and all I have to do is look at my history with it. It's quite obvious that my ending is different. So just my thought for the day. It was a nice telemarketer that brought that one to me. But hope you're having a good Saturday morning. I do have a guest that is possibly our longest distance so far, calling all the way from Turkey. I wanted to bring her on. I've heard her story a little bit before, and it's pretty packed full of really good stuff, and I thought she would be a fantastic guest for us to hear. I'm going to put on the, where is the banner here? Is this the one, I think? Yeah. If you have any questions or comments, you can throw them in the chat, or you can text them to me at the Cincy Sober Cell numbers across the bottom. I do want to open this up if anyone's got any questions for her. As we're going along, that'd be great. If you have anything you want to like to be on the show, text me your name and number as well, and we'll try and give you a call and go from there. But right now, without further ado, I'm going to bring in Zeynep from Turkey. Zeynep, can you hear me okay? A little bit of a time delay. Are you there?
Yep, I can hear you just fine.
Okay, we're a little delayed on the video to the sound, so I think what's good.
I can hear you fine, but
okay, I'm gonna shut up and let you go as best I can. I know my wife right now is yelling at me from upstairs. Jeff, just shut up for once in your life. Shut up and let someone else talk. I apologize. But anyways, Zeynep, take it and let's hear your story, because it's a good one.
thank you so much for having me. I'm super psyched about this. I met you, I think, sometime last spring, and ever since then, you've been a breath of fresh air in this sobriety journey. I always like having sober buddies who have a good sense of humor. Mine is pretty usual. It started with an eating disorder in high school. And then when I was with self-esteem and confidence issues and just the regular stuff that teens go through, around college, I discovered alcohol. And alcohol seemed to soothe my eating disorder just fine. And I became a very outgoing, I thought very funny, charismatic, self-confident Zeynep that, was just a breath of fresh air to what I'd been going through in high school. And so I kind of started using that as a crutch, being very aware of it in the beginning. I definitely wasn't partying as hard as most people in college, so I didn't see a problem. But of course, my parents, the people who see your relationship to it, they can pick up on it much sooner than you can. But I just thought, well, everybody's partying. 20, 20-year-olds too. So that took off from there and into a career of advertising. It became the after work, happy hour drinks, a glass of chilled white wine or something, and hanging out at the pub with all the advertisers and thinking I'm doing fancy networking. And it just, took on a life of its own and escalated and just grew and grew and grew until it totally took my whole life in its hand. But I think the interesting parts are I had one incident when I was 20-something, when I was seeing a therapist for my eating disorder, and I fell like at 4 a.m, leaving some after party, and went to get stitches because I hit my head. And happened with the insurance or something that the hospital ended up calling my parents. So it was a Sunday morning, and I was at home at like, I don't know, 10, 11, something, after, grabbing a burger for a late breakfast or something. Family.
I lost Zainab. Hang on just a second.
Everything was settled, and Zainab didn't need to even voice her opinion. So that really pissed me off. But that goes to show how early on people thought my drinking was a problem. They were completely misreading this whole situation. But
we're getting a lot of freeze up right now, and this is too important. I'm wondering if so just looking at your system, even if we went audio only, if we kill your video just so we get more strength on your signal going out, see what you can do, because you've got too good of a story to miss. So I'm hoping that Carrie, I know there's nothing on your end. Of course, this is all Carrie's fault as usual. But I want to see if there's anything on your end, Zainab, that we can silencing the video and just going with audio. So let's just see when she comes back in. So anyone got, let's just hit the comments while we're bringing back on. Yes, exactly. Carrie's fault. We are the phone thing is what I'm going to try. The fact that she's in Turkey, I've got to see how that's going to work. So let's just bear with for a second. So Derek, okay, this is great. So now you get to see what Jeff looks like when he has nothing to say on a Saturday morning with you guys. Yeah, nice shirt in the background. We're adding to the call her they the yeah. Anyways, we're working on it. We're adding stuff to this wall back here. I've got a couple of other pictures that I'm going to try and find space to, but I figure if things keep going with memorabilia from the show, we're going to add this thing up to a full length. I will. I had another conversation that is going to be another Facebook Messenger to call. Carrie, you might. That's a good one. Let me see if that would work. Thanks, Elizabeth, for that advice. I apologize for this, guys, but we are working on it. I got to go to the all right, this is great Saturday morning. Look, we're not drinking, guys. That's the important thing. So let's keep our priorities in line here. Elizabeth, I might owe you a large
hello.
Vinte. Hey, Zainab, is this, I think maybe audio? How's this sound to you?
This sounds okay.
All right, well, we're going to do this. So people are just going to have to stare at my mug right now, but
okay,
let's do this, because what you say is most important, and really everyone wants just to look at me and see, my
I'm absolutely sure of that.
Exactly. All right, so where we started to break up, you said you fell one night or at 4 a.m. or something with stitches.
Oh, yes.
Start there and let's run with that, please.
All right. Well, this was around 22 years old, I think, something like that. I fell and went to the hospital early in the morning at dawn. Something happened with insurance or something, I think, that after I left, they must have called my house and got a hold of my parents. But by the time I got back home, there was like the whole family council, all the, aunts and aunts and every single person in the medical field in the family was there. It was pretty much like the council had already decided Zainab was going to be off to rehab. But of course, at that time, it's crazy that they all seemed to agree on it. But I thought they were completely misreading the situation. I thought, I'm a 20-year-old. This is what all my friends are doing. This is the modern day and age, and besides, I have an eating disorder. You don't understand, and all sorts of rationalizations and reasons for me to be angry. So when I got to this rehab place, I was very quickly on a mission to break all the rules and get myself kicked out of there, which is what I did, jumping over walls and finding the nearest pub with an IV needle in my arm and, finding a way to, just run and grab my wallet from the car while you serve me another drink and stuff like that. But, so it was terrible, but this was very early on, and it goes to show how much we can, fool ourselves. But afterwards, I just, once I was kicked out, my parents got a.
So wait, Zainab, let me ask you real quick,
sure.
Because we talked the other day about willingness versus and wanting to get sober versus willing to get sober, and I think even I think even worse on the spectrum for me would have been agreeing to get sober, not by my choice because I'm being sent in or forced in, which I for me. I'm such a stubborn SOB. No, you force me. I'm going the other direction. I will stomp my feet.
Exactly.
And that's so you were in that you had agreed at this point to get sober, correct?
I hadn't even agreed. I thought they were out of their minds to be trying to get me sober. And you're putting me in here, sure, I'll go. Oh, but I ain't getting sober. You can do all you want. I'm going to come back out and drink. That's the way it's going to be. I was 20-something. I'd only been drinking for like 3-4 years. There's no way I could, picture myself as being an alcoholic or having an alcohol problem. But, I guess they put some sense because I was having trouble, sticking to my curfews. I'd have work the next day and could get home at 4. I'd plan other things and be unable to stick to my plan. Those should have been signals, but it was just too early on for me to hear that. Like I hadn't accumulated enough, negative consequences to.
So what were the
question it myself?
What were the besides getting stitches in your head? A one-time incident wouldn't have been enough for me to. So what? I mean,
it was a lot of not coming home on time, being like, "Oh, I'm not going to make it for dinner, but I'll be there at like 9. I'll be there. No, I can't make it at 9. I'll be home at 11. No, actually, maybe I'll be home at 1. Stuff like that. And then a lot of nights, eventually, the phone turning off. Then, not being, not keeping my word about where I was, what time I'd be home, and stuff like that. Just not being accountable to the people I was living under the same roof with. So those were all the signs. And, they must have picked up on the fact that I was coming home smelling like alcohol, 6 out of the 7 days a week.
Yeah. And the getting home late. And then for me, and I think we even joked about the other day with the Ring doorbell app that we installed for bad people. It turned out against me because turned out I was the bad person. But that thing caught me sneaking full beers in and empty beer cans out in my work because I had a lot of work to do when I came home at night. A lot of work. So that's why that backpack was stuffed.
Yeah, I know that backpack. I had that backpack. What happened with me was, getting in a situation where I could no longer comfortably drink in my parents' house. I moved on to very quickly find myself in a serious relationship where I could move out and, where I could tend to my drinking and, just whatever was convenient to keep me in my relationship with alcohol going. So, and actually my mom told me the other day, and I have no recollection of this, of course, but she said, when you left the house at 25 and moved out with the boyfriend at the time, she said, when we're cleaning your room, every single drawer was full of empty beer cans. She said every single nook and cranny in that room was full of empty beer cans.
Wow.
And I can't even imagine having left it like that for them to find. Like this came as a shock to me now at 40 years old. I was like, really? I did that? At 25, it was that bad? And it's another 11 years to actually have to get help again? So, go figure.
My kids, my girls who are older, they're Elizabeth, my wife would have them go out into the garage and it became a running contest who could find the most beer cans. And, they would be in the 20s to 30s each, and those are the ones that I'd hidden. Those weren't the ones, cause I would throw the obvious ones away as best I could, take those down to the local dumpster. But yeah, they would. That was a fun morning or afternoon game for the kids. Was let's find Daddy's beer cans.
Sad how familiar these stories are. Yeah, like yeah, it's sad. But yeah, so I was in Istanbul for 5 years, serious relationship there. Then we moved to Vancouver, BC, and that relationship fell apart because eventually my drinking was just way more important than keeping the relationship alive.
Was he a drinker? Was he a drinker or?
He was a big partier. He drank a lot and he smoked too, but he was like, he seemed to be a take it or, as though he was a heavy partier, he seemed to be a take it or leave it guy too. So like, as soon as, we didn't have a plan for Saturday and Sunday, he'd rather be, cooking a nice meal, which I couldn't wrap my mind around.
He's one of them. So, yeah. One of those.
Yeah, I know. One of those. Yeah.
They just, they don't
know who we're talking about.
They don't know how to have a good time,
No, they just decide they've had enough all of a sudden. When you get home after going out at night, they just decide to go to bed. Like, who does that?
What a waste of time. I
know. Like, what a waste of your buzz and your money you spent outside. You might as well keep riding that wave, right?
Yeah, that's
as long as you can go until you pass out.
That's why caffeine was invented.
The cops come.
Yeah,
I know, exactly. Yeah. These things. I heard you talking about being able to joke about these the other day in your show, but yeah, we can joke about it now, but it's really not funny.
Yeah,
but that's where I was living. Really, that was exactly it. Like, people were like. And people would come over to our place and, pass out on the couch, pass out in the guest room. And then they'd wake up for breakfast and find me still up and still going. And I thought I wore that like a badge of honor. I thought I was so tough that I could drink these people and still be the last warrior standing, to carry it over to the next day. I thought that was a thing of pride that showed some kind of strength, or maybe how troubled I was or something. I don't know.
Exactly. What is the? I don't get it. I was the same way. If I could outlast everyone, that was I was the man, because I was the last one to go to bed and the first one to start the next day.
I know, and like now I know, especially as a female. First of all, you don't have the enzyme that breaks down the alcohol in your stomach, or less of it, or something. I'm no doctor, but so. If you can keep up with the boys, then that should be a warning signal to begin with. If you're out drinking others, or like if they're getting all rowdy and you're not, what we call, you can hold your liquor, that's not a good sign. That just means you've worked up your tolerance. It means you drink too much.
Yeah.
Just the fact that you're not getting drunk as fast should be a sign for you to, kind of get a wake-up call that maybe I'm drinking too much. But it never is at the time.
Just I've been trying to read a lot lately on anxiety, which is something that just destroyed me for years and miraculously has all but disappeared since I quit drinking. Unbelievable. That just doesn't, I still can't accept that. But, you gotta, I'm not a health nut by any stretch. But what you're pouring into your body, and how can I expect my body not to react poorly when I'm dumping all this crap into it? It is gonna. No wonder it's manifesting or coming out in anxiety or the sweats in the shower, or the shaking hand when I'm trying to eat soup and I'm spilling it all down my shirt. What do you expect when you're doing? I treat my car a hell of a lot better than I do.
Absolutely.
I don't want to put cheap gas into my truck because it deserves better, but I'll dump that crap down my throat all day long. So anyways, back to
it's amazing. I was just going to add how you think you make an exception for that one thing, like even if you feel guilty about the Big Mac that you eat once a month, I felt guilty about a Big Mac more than I did about having a case of beer every night.
Bingo.
It's like, that's the exception. Yes, it might be bad, but that's a different thing.
Well, I was good, and not to promote. Where is it? I can't even find it here. Not to promote Centrum Silver, but as long as I took a couple of my multivitamin, well, we're good. Bring on the case of beer because I got, I took 2 because it only says it's 1 a day. But I was, I was dumb. I took 2 because I'm that concerned and I'm going to make sure I take care of myself right.
Because you're all about insurance, right?
Oh yeah, insurance. Exactly. So get back to your so the relationship with South. We're picking up from there.
So yeah, we moved to Vancouver together, kind of expecting a change. So my story has a lot of change of scenery and change of people, change of environment to try to get away from myself, I guess. But the only thing I carried was my problems and my drinking with me everywhere I went. So it would reenact itself in every new situation. So here I was in Canada, having broken up with the Turkish man I'd moved there with. And, what do? Of course, I start making new friends at the corner pub. And shortly thereafter, met someone else. And he turned out to be a very heavy drinker, too. And I thought I was in heaven. Oh, this is great. He lives just down the street, and, you make up all sorts of justifications for why that person is the right person at the time and stuff like that. But again, another 5 years of escalating drinking where my health continued to decline. And it was amazing. I just didn't seem to be able to get it through my thick head. So my body finally started sending me the signals. I started developing neuropathy and, the morning tremors and really being nauseous in the morning, not being able to start the day without having that first beer, So that's what it came down to. And then in 1 year, it really took off. It really deteriorated to the point where before I could even investigate where I could find help in Vancouver, I was like, I can't make it to the counselor's office. I need to go to the pharmacy and buy a cane because my feet hurt so much when I'm trying to walk down the sidewalk, So it just got way out of control. And it came to the point where I had to pick up the phone and call my parents in Turkey and said, I messed it up. I don't know how to get myself out of this. You guys have to do something.
So how was that? How was that phone call? Because I think that's huge.
I think they were probably really big time. Because towards the end, again, what I did was with this person in the second long-term relationship. Towards the end, we decided the city was bad for us. We were right in East Vancouver, and kind of at a very bohemian part of town. And lots of drinking available right outside the door. So we decided we were going to, throw ourselves into the woods and, get this RV and go minimal and all sorts of things. So we did that and traveled down into the States for a long time. But of course, even then, the main focus of our travels became, when do we unhook from the sewer? Where's the nearest Walmart? How many 40-pack cases do we need to get? And, so I'd be up chopping wood at 4 a.m, crafting a beer. And, my body couldn't withstand that. So, like I said, during those times, being away and in the wilderness was a perfect excuse for me to turn my phone off and not speak to my parents for a month, 2 months at a time. And from what I know now, my mom she was just broken. She was full on nervous wreck. And says, I have no idea. She has no idea how she got through those years. I have no idea how bad it must have been, but thank God, she had a partner who was supportive and, tried to keep her calm. And she had heard from plenty of places that you can't help her. Only she can help herself. Only she can decide if she wants to help. The only thing you can do is take care of yourself and be there for her. So when she received that call, I think she must have been really relieved, and she must have said, finally, we've been waiting for this for the past 10 years,
Yeah. And that's got to be such a helpless feeling because you want so badly, but until I was ready, I was pissed that you approached me with my drinking problem. I'm a big guy. I played football my whole life. Well, I'm a lineman. Mm-hmm. That's what we do. Come on, look at everyone else. Everyone does this. Big guys are drinkers. What's the big deal? I'm still doing, whatever. It's sad, but I don't know. That's the $1 million question. How do you really help someone or bring them to it?
Yeah, I think I know very well. There was a time when, in the early stages, I told you there was a time when I didn't think it was a problem yet. I thought, I might be drinking a bit too much, but it's certainly not something one can call a drinking problem. And I said, I have an eating disorder. I might have other mental issues, but drinking is not a problem. And then there came a point where I knew that had switched. And my thinking was, okay, I'm no dummy. I know I have a problem, and I will tackle it when I'm ready to tackle it. But don't you dare tell me I have a problem and tell me to tackle it now. I'll decide when I'm ready. And that was my mindset. And so deep down, I knew there was a problem, but the more deeper you go into it, the bigger that problem becomes for you to tackle. So I started getting crushed under the weight of not knowing where to begin, what I would have to do, what that would entail. I couldn't I can't even picture how I would spend one day without drinking, let alone quitting drinking. Like, it was just so questionably difficult for me to fathom that I just didn't tackle it at all. I didn't even attempt the day one, I didn't even try to cut down. I was like, okay, I have a problem. I'll tackle this, just not now.
Yeah,
what I did until my body broke down.
And mine was breaking down. I mean, it was from the shakes to there was plenty of indications, but of course, I'm a tough guy, so I'll ignore it, and I'll hide it, whatever, it'll get better. But oh God, you nailed it so much about the denial thing. It's something that, how dare you come at me with it?
Yeah, I'm no dummy. I can see it, and who are you? Are you going to know better than me if I have a problem? I'm living in this mind,
You don't know what I'm dealing with trying to, my job, with all the stress I have. If you understood, you'd know why. Cut me some slack. I'm not doing this maliciously. I have my life is woe is me. I deserve this.
Do you think I'd want to be this way? Do you think I enjoy spending my life like this? Don't you think I'd want to be, all sorts of rationalizations and justifications, really?
Yeah, I drank to bury and numb the problems I had. And then the next day, the problems were, a major thing was the shame and the embarrassment and not wanting to face the fact that I just spent all day yesterday drinking and wasting my time. So the pain of having to just realize that is brutal. So I'm going to numb that by drinking. I'll drink that away.
Exactly. That I can recall that feeling so clearly. And that is the sole reason, that was the driving factor behind my drinking. I think the last 2 years, upon the first waking hour of the day, the shame of where my life was, not necessarily just the night before, but oh my God, I had this many chances. I went to these schools. I had this diploma. My parents did everything for me. I was an only child. And here I am, 30 something, no proper career, financially unstable, nothing to show for it. And that shame, the only way I could override it would be, you know what, let's go to the pub and, shove this push this under the carpet as soon as we can.
Yeah, I buried it. It was, and as soon as I buried it with alcohol, I was back to where I wanted to be. Suddenly I was happy for the short time, confident. I felt good enough to walk around with other people, but as soon as that evaporated, it was even worse. So you went, that was your first rehab that you went through?
Well, no, the first rehab was when I was actually early 20s, but that was the one I didn't take seriously at all.
Okay.
I was rebelling against. So when I was 36 and finally I called for Vancouver and they flew me back and they put me into a psychiatric hospital. What happened there was I had lost tremendous amount of weight. So the eating disorder was still going on. And because I had lost so much weight, the doctors, it's amazing how few good specialists there are out there. It's for addiction problems. They looked at me and they said, eating disorder. We have to focus on this eating disorder still at 36. So they put me in detox and, they said, no, you really ought to quit drinking. But the whole focus was around food. and getting me back to a healthy weight and whatnot. So upon, I stayed there for a month, got out, and they told me, you really should do something about the drinking, but it wasn't the main focus. So by the time, I was back on my feet and, out and about doing regular daily things again, the first opportunity I had, the first time, I was on my own for a couple of hours outside, I'd go and get a drink, So 3 weeks down the line, I have a drink. 3 weeks after that, I'm drinking around the clock. So you're back in the cycle again. And once you go through that detox, and once my body had broken down so bad that, there's no way I could drag it out anymore. Like upon release, 2 months down the line, I was in terrible shape again. So somehow they put me back in there 3 times. So I detoxed 3 times, but was released each time saying, try to refrain from drinking, And my parents did hope every time that I wouldn't drink again, but try to refrain from drinking isn't really a message that an alcoholic is going to, stick to. So happened was...
Go ahead. No, I was going to say...
Was
the
person who was treating me was an eating disorder specialist, and she went on maternity leave. That's when I had to switch therapists at the hospital. And the person I went to was like, what do you mean, David? You need to be in the alcohol ward. You have to be attending meetings. You have to be in group therapy. You have to, do all this stuff. And that's when, finally, that's when I first went in for proper alcohol rehab. But it's amazing. It took a whole year for me to get to that point.
You had to have been relieved when they said, oh, you've got an eating disorder, and oh, great. That's my, don't focus on alcohol.
Yeah. Yep.
And the other that's crazy, and I'm glad you brought this up because it kind of helps me. But when people, Jeff, what, just don't drink. What's the problem? And you just don't understand. When I'm sitting here and you say eating disorder, and here I am, an alcoholic that is struggling with the issues with alcohol and totally understands why it is what it is. Even I'm sitting here listening to you going, an eating disorder? What's your problem? Just, how can someone be anorexic or whatever? Just eat. What's the big deal? Even I, as supposedly a guy that's supposed to be understanding.
Yeah, and they feed off of each other so well because, if you're not eating, beer keeps you going, gives you the calories, and, it fills you up so you're not, starving. You don't want to eat, so, it fits perfectly into the picture. And and those times, like, I did kind of have, okay, let me try to not drink was kind of my mindset upon, leaving rehab several times. But I'd be like, okay, so what have I been doing here? I've been drinking some diet soda. I've been, drinking a lot of seltzer and decaf coffee. So I've, packed my bags ready with those and kind of have a vague idea of what I was going to do. But as soon as I was outside and in an environment where alcohol was present, I'd be like, yeah, I have my diet soda, but let me grab a beer first, and then I'll switch to Diet Coke.
Yeah, bingo.
Like, it just didn't, it just, as soon as it was available, it just went to default mode, regardless of what I thought would be a good idea before I got to my destination. Once I got there, I went into my default behavior,
My Diet Pepsi between beers was a justification for the next beer. It was like, okay, good. I just drank a Diet Pepsi, so now
I've been a good boy for half an hour.
Yeah, a half hour. You're now
I deserve beer.
You and I are in different time zones, and because that was a no half hour, more like half a minute. But yeah, it was because I just drank a Diet Pepsi, so now I've earned the right. I was good, so now I can drink with now I can drink a beer. So I probably it just escalated it. It's crazy, the problems.
And like I remember like sitting at the pub and just watching, my partner at the time would drink his beer and just waiting for him to hurry up. It finishes already, so we could order another round. Otherwise, all fingers are going to point to me. So
yeah,
I'd be getting stressed out over how he was carried away in this conversation and not drinking fast enough. Stop talking and drink your beer.
Yeah. God, that's so true. Yeah, everything was measured against someone else, and I was safe as long as someone else was. My wife is a very casual drinker. We went out the other night for dinner. She had a beer and a half and just chuckled because she knows I don't understand. But she just pointed to her half beer as we left and just smiled at me because she knows I have no understanding. Why would you do that? That just doesn't. That's makes no sense to me.
Yeah,
But,
seriously. What kind of message did you receive from the beyond that made you decide to stop halfway through?
Yeah, well, that was the one time that I don't know if you've heard this, but when I was new into sobriety, earlier this year, well, in 2020, when right before all the lockdowns happened, we were out at a pizza joint, and she had a beer and a half. She said, "You ready to go?" And I said, "Aren't you going to finish your beer?" And she said, "No." I said, "How do you feel right now?" She said, "I feel good." And I said, "Well, wouldn't you feel even better if you finished that beer?" And she said, "No, I'd feel bloated." And I thought, my God, you are just a loser. You have no concept of what it's like to be an alcoholic because you just don't.
Well, you could have said you shouldn't have eaten so much pizza.
Well, but she would rather. She would rather eat.
Thing, right?
She would rather have dinner
and keep room.
Yeah, she would rather have room for dinner than. And I was
food,
like,
imagine that.
Yeah, the food for me was just taken up. Now, if it was something like bread, that was okay because it would sop up. In my mind, I got a loaf of bread sitting in my stomach that'll absorb. Take the beer in and hold it. Mm-hmm. I can probably. So I was. You didn't want to eat up with like meat because that would occupy too much space, and I wouldn't be able to drink that much.
Yep.
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah, all right, so continue.
So after those, I had my proper alcohol rehab. This was like almost a year after I came back from Vancouver to Istanbul, and that was a month. And that's where once I was told that your problem is alcohol, and once I went to those meetings and heard people talk about addiction and became more informed and whatnot, it started to sink in. I was like, oh, I can't drink. Like I have drank so much that my body has become too sensitive to this. I've passed that threshold already. So when I put it in my body can no longer handle it. And I make myself sick in no time. So if I continue doing this, I'm just going to end up coming back to the hospital. There's no way I can go on living a normal life if I keep drinking every time I eat. So that was when it went, oh, you're cornered, Zainab. This is game over. You've pushed it as far as it goes. You've drank more than enough for one lifetime. And, from now on, it's going to be, whatever boring grown-ups do was my thinking at the time. But even then, and then we'd kind of shifted our game. We said, I'd been staying at my dad's house till then. Doctor said, maybe you should move in with your mom and accept some, more nurturing care and, accept help more. And that was a tough one for me to swallow, but we said, okay, and more protected kind of early sobriety was the plan. So in between, they said, why don't you go for kind of like a sober camp for a month to have an easy transition, kind of socialize with people there. Don't go straight from the hospital to your mom's house and, because, there might be tension or something. We had some good planning in our head. But once I got there, I heard that, because there were mostly drug addicts there. And so they didn't see their drinking as much of a problem. So I heard, like, second day in from someone over breakfast that, at a certain hour, if you just walk down the beach in a certain direction, then, 5 minutes down the road, there's a place and, this and that it was possible. And of course, something went cha-ching in my brain. And a week later, I had observed everybody's routines and hours and schedules and all the openings and cracks in the fence and everything. Had my plan all laid out of what time I would go where and, whatnot. So I thought I was going for, to have, one last session with, my long lost friend or something, because once I went back home, I was never going to drink again. And that's honestly what I had in my mind. I thought I just have, a remainder of like $20 in my pocket. So I'm just going to go spend that, come back, and that's going to be it. once for old time's sake. But of course, it doesn't work that way. And the first couple of days after, I was like, see, I went, I had a few, and it was nice, on the beach at sunset, and this is grand, and I'm doing just fine. Now I'm ready. I said goodbye, and I wrote in my journal and said, this is it, did all sorts of, stuff to make it a nice, deserving goodbye. But of course, a week later or something, I started thinking, well, I am here for a couple more weeks. I wonder if I could do that maybe a couple more times.
It was fun.
If I did it once a week, it was fun. So I did it once that week. So maybe if I do it once this week and once next week, and then you know how it goes.
Yep.
So basically from there, it got to a point where I was itching at like 3 a.m. for a beer so bad, crying and just saying, just send me back to the hospital. I can't do this. I can't do this alone. That's when I realized I really can't do this alone. Like, I have to go to the hospital and really take this shit seriously.
I
was brought to my knees by alcohol. I was like, it has such power over me that it actually brings me to pain. If I drink it and then I don't have access to it, it's painful. And that was like, I don't want to be in that kind of pain anymore, was when, I think it clicked for me.
Zainab, I'm going to ask you a question that I'm hoping that you'll answer like I did. But let me ask you this: if you have one beer or say 2 beers and stop, if tonight you went out and just had 2, what do you feel physically? Break it up physically and mentally, because, well, just go ahead and answer that. If you had 2 tonight, went out, and then the rest of the evening was going to continue, but you had 2 and then stopped, what is your body? How does your body feel with that?
You know what? I'm not even sure, because it's been a while. So I'm like almost 3.5 years sober now. And towards the end, because I was so sick, like, I don't even know how my body would handle the couple of beers. But I do know that
go back to when you were drinking. When you were drinking, though. So before you had quit. So this is before the 3 years.
Like those in betweens, like when I had those couple of beers at the sober camp, the first couple of beers with the $20 I found in my jeans, and at that point I was like, towards the end of the first one, moving on to the second one, I was like, this is euphoria.
But if you had to stop at that point, because my point is, and I guess I'm looking for
wherever I stopped, it hurt.
That's what I mean. Is my evening was not, oh darn, I wish I could have another beer. I really would like to have another beer. I physically had a knot in my stomach. I had.
I know. Yes, absolutely.
It was a physical reaction that people don't, on the outside, them cool people like us don't understand. But I almost went into an instant withdrawal if I was drinking and then stopped. The rest of the evening was physically painful for me.
Yep. And that's what I mean. Like towards the end, like I'd be sneaking in beers into this camp at night. So I'd say I was able to sneak 4 or 5 in my pocket. Once those were out, I'd be in, like you said, the knot in my stomach, the restlessness. I'd be pacing up and down my bungalow. Like, I can't possibly go to bed. How could I go to bed and sleep? Like, it was really bad. Like you said, it's just no amount is enough. Like, there's never like, oh, that was nice. I'm glad I did that. There's no off switch for me now, at least anymore.
Exactly. Yeah.
I broke that off switch is what happened.
Yeah, that is probably, I'm so glad to hear you say that, because that's what, explaining to whether my kids or friends or whoever that doesn't understand, that's a concept that they don't get, where, well, look, you've been drinking, it's 10 o'clock. Why don't we just go to bed? No, I can't. I won't be able to just turn it off and relax and get into bed and just enjoy. My body is screaming for one more, and it never stop saying one more.
And when you put it that way, actually, like that was there way before I got sick. Like, so I went into rehab, like I got sick at 36, but like even before the move to Canada, like, so between 25 and 30, I remember we'd go out at night, stay out till 2 a.m. And on the way back, I'd have that knot in my stomach in the car. I'd be like, we have to find a place that's open. We have to find somewhere where I can get some more beer. And that would be my main agenda. And like, if you guys are going home, go home. I'll take a cab, find a place, I'll meet you there. Like, I could not bring myself to go home without, feeling secure that I had enough to get me through the night.
Here's
so this was like 10 years before I was in the hospital. So that's a pretty big sign of how bad it is. And it's amazing how long it takes for you to actually go out and get help.
This is a story my wife has not heard, and I know she's listening because she just made a comment earlier. But we were at the Cincinnati Bearcats college basketball game, and one of the few arenas that at the time, this was years ago, but sold beer, and they would stop selling at the end of the third quarter. Right at the end, they would shut down and take the taps off. And I remember, I guess I looked up and knew I was in trouble. But I was in a panic, almost running down the steps, heading over, passing a couple of places that were already twisting off the keg tops, and found the one that was still open. I'm going to guess it was $5 a beer. I had $4.50. I asked a stranger if I could have 50 cents from him because I had I was in a panic that I was not going to be able to have another beer for the rest of the game. I mean, in a panic about it. And I don't know, when you were talking, that just brought that memory up. And I think even then it was like, what the hell is wrong with me? But I also saw about 4 other people that were scrambling to get in as well. I'm sure that are maybe even listening to the show this morning in the same boat. But that's something that someone like my wife doesn't understand. Looking at the clock when it's closing hour, we stopped selling beer at 2:00. That was red alert for monitoring the line to make sure I was going to be able to get in and get that last pitcher or 2, whatever. That was critical time. It was just ruling my life at that point.
Yeah, it's really important to remember these. Like I have
lost you there.
Downtown Vancouver, and having to leave the movie theater saying I'm going to the bathroom, and it was one of the Lord of the Rings or something, maybe, I don't know, one of those long movies. And I just took a break halfway and went and drank a beer somewhere and went back in and said I couldn't find the bathroom. Like it was painful to sit through a movie. And all the times, like, I remember myself bolting down the street before, off-sales would shut down or something like that. And it's important to remember those because, like, you associate the drinking and, the kind of like the facade, the lifestyle that comes with it of, some kind of rebellion, freedom, like going against society's norms or something at times. But it's important to remember, like, how much of a hold it had on everything. Like,
and the sad thing is
you're a prisoner. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And the sad thing is that my memory wants to bury that part. My memory is, oh, we went to the movie and had a great time. Oh, and it was, that was the good. I have to dig to, oh, that's right. Or the basketball game. We went and had a great time at that college basketball game. My wife and I, had a great time. We had dinner, a couple beers. Wait a minute. What's that memory over there in the corner that's been covered up with a blanket? Oh, that's me sprinting down and begging a stranger for 50 cents so I can buy that last beer before they stop selling. Wow, I forgot about that crappy memory. The only ones that are out on the wall for me to see are, the happy ones.
Yeah, absolutely true. And I think there's some kind of a name in psychology or psychiatry for that, like they call it drug memory or something. But I was thinking about that when you were doing your opening talk. Like, I think maybe it just occurred to me, like, maybe the reason for that is because in all those events, I'm I was observing from within my head. So I was observing from an intoxicated place. I wasn't observing from the outside. So I remember, feeling like a funny, confident, person. Like you have to kind of look at the memory from a place that, from an outsider's point of view, I guess. And it's hard. Like you said, you remember the nice part of it for some reason. So you have to, intentionally override that with your mind and your thoughts.
So
You have to remind yourself, and yeah.
So what is life for you like now? You've got what, 3 years?
3 years, yeah. Well, life is good. Actually, I'm still living with my mom and her partner, but I'm really enjoying it. Like now that I don't have that crutch, it's just like having, roommates who can cook really well. And, I don't mind at all. And regaining of trust has been huge. That, because when I first came out, my mom was knocking on my door like 20 times a day. Did you take your pills? Are you sleeping yet? Are you up? Are you still there? Checking to see if the window and the door were open. But, now it's just like, I share one, floor of the house, and they're on another floor, and it's fine. And funny enough, my therapist during the early years had said, Miss Zainab, do you realize how animated you become when you're telling stories and, enacting your mom and your dad and this and that? Have you ever considered going to like an acting or voiceover course? And I did that. And now I'm actually signed with a talent agency. And it's great because of the pandemic. I sit at home, and every now and then they have, little corporate commercial readings in English or something for, their, headquarter presentations. So I'll read that, making a bit of money. And, just really immersed in recovery, because for me, what's important is I think it's important for people out there to know it can happen to everyone. Everyone has this stereotypical thing of, they wouldn't expect me to become an alcoholic. I'm so sad. What happened? You were the last person who should have become an alcoholic, kind of like that. And I just want to, be out there, be outspoken about it, be verbal. And I think the more we can be outspoken about it, and the more people can see examples of people who are, they're still funny. They're still, they're still cool. And they still have friends, and they still have a life, and they still do fun things, and even better, Yeah, there's so much stuff. At the end, I was doing nothing but going to the pub. I wouldn't go on vacation because I'd be afraid of not having enough, sufficient access to booze or stuff like that. And so I want to be out there talking about it, and I do the best I can. And you and I both are in Laura's group. I just love the people there. It's very enriching, and I'm pleased, but I'm kind of, still taking life one day at a time, and, waiting to see where the road leads me. But so far I'm having a good time. I'm pleased. I'm not, it's the biggest and hardest thing I ever did, and no one can take that away from me. And that's important.
Lulu just said on the chat that you're a great dancer too. The video part's not working, so we'll have to have you back on to show that part. So are you, as far as working with others, because just telling my story and talking to other people is critical for me, for my journey. What are you doing besides coming on this, what is your work program as far as your program?
Well, you know what? I don't have any, it's not like I planned it, but before the pandemic, I was still going to the meetings at the hospital, and there they have, in the beginning of my early sobriety, I went like every day to the meetings for the patients who were like still inpatient in the service. And that was kind of unusual, but I was like, well, since I'm in this, I might as well do my homework. I've been a good student in my whole life. And if I'm going to tackle this, I'm going to do it right. So for a long time, I went every day. But towards the end, I was going twice a week to the meetings that were open to people in long-term recovery. And, adding whatever I could to the conversation. And now I'm in TLC. I do AA here as well. I haven't yet completed the steps with a sponsor, so I'm not sponsoring in AA, but I kind of try to add what I can, you know, and I think it is about really telling your story, because everyone's is so different. So that is, whenever you tell your own truth in detail, there's bound to be someone who hears something in there that clicks.
Yeah.
And like, for me, I remember the first time I saw like a lady who was 3 years sober, who came to one of those hospital meetings in like her yoga pants and her, gym bag. And she looked so happy and so healthy. And I realized I've never seen anyone who is in long-term recovery, especially, a female my age who is healthy, looks healthy, healthy and happy. And it was the first time I thought, well, see, she hasn't gone back to drinking. If she's still doing it 3 years down the line, then there must be something in it for me too. I think it's important to be there and be an example,
That's when
and be honest, yeah, go ahead.
No, it's just exactly when I see other people that are hearing what they've been through, and I can identify and say, oh my God, I thought I was the only one that did that. I was, and realizing I'm not alone in this, and then seeing people successful and happy and positive and smiling, that gives me the inspiration. That's one thing about having some fun with this that we hit on earlier. If I came to meetings and people were just sitting around and crying and talking about how life sucks and it's, boring, and there's what's my motivation to join that group? I don't even want to be a part of that. And to see people that are having fun is what, that's what brought me into this.
And not to say like you don't bring your troubles either. Like that like being vulnerable and being open when you're having a tough time is just as important as sharing the good stuff. But sometimes there are certain communities and groups where you kind of feel that morbidity in the room, and you can kind of feel that these people don't really have that much going for them. They don't know how much, enriching sobriety can be. And I want to be with people who see it as that, I want to be with people who have enhanced their lives since they've gotten sober, not people who think like, their best friend was taken away and, all that was good was left in the past.
I think the what you said is dead on, because it's there's a ton of channels on TV, and not every show is the same, and there are a lot of shows that do nothing for me and I don't want to watch them, so I change channels until I find a show that has the actors or whatever, the characters in it that appeal to me, makes it fun. Right? Yeah, appeals to me.
Yeah.
And, AA meetings or sobriety recovery meetings are not all just one cast of the exact same thing. There's going to be some that, I've been to plenty that were dull and just didn't do anything for me. And I've found ones that have done something for me. And that's what you have to look and find. Like if I can say anything to, anyone who's new or debating whether or not they have a problem, is that there's so much out there these days. Like you just have to look for it. And the options are so varied. Like you said, like I've been to AA meetings where I was like, oh my God, I can't, this is, I got to get out. How do I leave the Zoom meeting? There's only, and then there are ones that I love. I love my home group here, and we have an English speaking in Istanbul, so it's all expats and some, people like some church like me, and I love that group. But I also can see how I would have had a challenge with the language of the big book if I were in AA in my early sobriety. I can see how that kind of wouldn't have served to make things easier for me. But that's just me. I've also been in non-AA groups, a couple different groups that I haven't found the same vibe that I have elsewhere. So it's really important. It's, finding like-minded people, finding, people you like listening to, people you like sharing with, and that community is a huge factor, and it does the trick. So last question for the person that's new that realizes Hey, it's time. I got to do this. What, how do they get started? What's your advice there?
Well, not advice, but I think what I needed to hear when I was new is I know there's no way you can imagine a life without alcohol right now. I know you feel like your life as you know it is over, but trust me, you just have to walk. There, you can't imagine it because you've never been there, but the land you're going to get to is going to be better than where you are right now, would be what I would say.
That's exactly, because the thought of day one of starting this, it scared, it made me mad. It scared the hell out of me. The thought of dealing with life without alcohol and having to face it without alcohol would just suck. I couldn't imagine doing that. I was scared. I was angry. All those emotions. I didn't think it was even doable.
Also, yeah. And also, I think what I learned and what I didn't do so correctly was I thought it was an all or nothing game. So it was the day was going to come when alcohol would be out of my life. What I see now a lot more, and also what, a lot of experts are talking in about other, self-development seminars and stuff, is the self-compassion and the baby steps thing. The doctor I went to was a very black and white abstinence person. You relapse, you screwed up, you start all over again, was the message he gave me. And that, I don't agree with that. I think, because that's what keeps you drinking. If you think it's black and white and once you quit, it has to be for good, then you just keep putting it off. The sooner you try one day, the better. Try a couple of days, try to string 3 days together and then, see where it goes, I think. You don't have to do it all right away, and it's a process. It takes a different amount of time for everyone. So it's perfectly normal. So you show yourself self-compassion and, just start somewhere because it's going to be good. It's worth it. The sooner you can make it to the other side, the better.
Yeah, that's and it took me a while to finally believe that was even possible. And I'm sure glad I did.
The sad part is you don't quite believe that until you're on the other side, unfortunately. It's the nature of the problem, but.
Well, you can, like they say, you can always go back. If you don't like it, you can always go back.
Exactly. That's what I told myself at one point. You know what? It's not like alcohol's going anywhere. I'm the one who's going to make that decision. So I'm going to do this right now. And if I change my mind, I'll think this through. And if I really think I'd be better off drinking, then, I can go back.
The last thing you were talking about locations and where you were buying and how close. I guess if you have a drinking problem, if you're like me, I where I chose my house, I looked at the house, sure, but I looked at the location. How close was it to the mini mart where I could get beer? What was the drive like? Was I busy intersections, or did I have back roads to get there? Was there a pub close? All these just crazy that I'm choosing where I'm going to live and raise my family based upon those kind of things are, wow, wake up.
Yeah, actually, I can add a bit to that because I think my tactics and strategy were pretty good in early recovery. I'm pretty proud of the way I played that one out. It is important to have stuff like, if you're going somewhere and there's a lot of pubs on the way, don't walk, have someone drop you off at the door, in early sobriety, like little tricks like that. Don't be waiting for someone to meet someone in front of, a pub, or if you're going to go for lunch and if you're going to have lunch alone, go somewhere that doesn't serve alcohol if you can, if you can avoid it, little things like that make a big difference. And also, I don't know, I'm not super comfortable saying this, but from what I've seen from the people coming to the hospital is a lot of people have this thing of trying to prove to themselves really early on that they can withstand being in environments. And I don't quite see the point in that. I've seen a lot of people come back to meetings and say, see, that party you told me not to go to on Friday, to the therapist, you know that thing you said don't go to? Well, I went and I didn't drink and I didn't crave a drink at all. And it was fine. And I had fun. And I even felt sorry for the people who were drunk and throwing up. And I felt like $1 million the next morning. And here I am. So I went and nothing happened. Well, that usually plants the seed. A lot of times I saw people, come back a month down the line, and I don't know what happened. I was driving home from work and I just pulled over and walked into the bar. Well, that's because you exposed yourself there. And that whole time you were actually, when you were saying it's not hurting me, it was all, going into your subconscious. So I think it's better to make it easy on yourself, in my opinion, but that's just me. So
no, I was the same way. I wanted to prove to myself and to others that, I could do it. And it was, and I think my advice to myself would have been, hey, the first couple of weeks, don't worry about, there's plenty of time to re-expose yourself to those situations right now.
Yeah.
Why make it more difficult? I think, I don't know, but
that's the 6 months I told you about in the meeting that my therapist says. Like the first 6 months, he says, are very crucial developmentally in terms of your sobriety. So he says, if you can, just refrain, postpone. Nothing's running away. Nothing's going anywhere. It's all going to be there.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, Zainab, I can't thank you enough. I was really looking forward to hearing your story. I literally could talk to you for hours. We'll definitely.
I know, me too. I know we went overtime, but it's just, especially when you find someone you can get along with and you start talking about it, you feel like you can go on for hours. So I hope we haven't bored anyone to death, but.
Well,
I hope your wife is pleased that you finally got someone who managed to out-talk you.
Oh, I had said the other day, did you listen to the show? She said, I don't like to listen to the show. And I said, why? And she said, because I want to run down and kick open the door and yell, Jeff, would you shut the hell up and let other people talk? And I don't know. I think that's being nervous and being a large guy with large lungs that need to, I don't know, but
yeah, get the air out.
Yeah, it's just I've got Post-it notes all over my computer, which people are probably saying, well, why don't you read them a little bit? But that say, shut up, let them talk, all these things. So I need to make them even bigger at times. But anyways, so Zainab, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really glad that you're doing this. And Sober Talk has been another nice addition to my sobriety toolkit. I love following the shows.
Well,
so I'm glad you guys are doing this.
Well, you're going to be back. We got to figure out the video, because I think that was the only negative, is that people had to just stare at me the whole time. And that's the bummer. But
it's fine with me because I was much less self-conscious. Now I got my feet up on my desk.
There you go.
I'm scratching my belly.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the TV from the corner of my eye.
Well, I had my problem with
just fine for me.
my problem in the show, someone had mentioned Jeff's coffee was out, and then I realized it was. So it was a matter of how do I sneak over and get this thing fired up again without looking like I'm ignoring listening. So anyway, but well, look, have a great weekend. Hey, I'm going to say just in closing, Zainab, to have a great one, and thanks so much. We are
Thank you.
Sober Talk is doing a Sunday evening. I believe it's going to be 8:00 Eastern time, the standard. I think they're starting a Zoom AA or 12-step meeting, Zoom style, which would be for a lot of participation. I think Brian is heading that up, bigger staff. So we're going to have more stuff posted on that, but welcome anyone to join. I think we're just looking to grow for all of us, different avenues to help. So anyways, keep an eye out for that.
All right, we'll do.
And you have a fantastic week.
I'm going to hang up and let you finish off your show.
Yeah, well, that's they're all here just to hear me talk. That's the important. We to realize it's not the case at all. Have a great day. Talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. Bye. Have a nice weekend, everyone.
All right. So that was Zainab from Turkey, and like I had said, I'd heard part of her story, but just I I could listen to her all day. So everyone, thanks for coming out. Details are coming on the Zoom thing. This is early stages and growing. Stay on the Facebook page, Sober Talk Live, and throw in comments, questions, suggestions, all that good stuff. Everyone have a fantastic weekend. Don't forget, it is Valentine's Day. So if you got someone that deserves a big thank you for putting up with all the crap that we've given to them for so long, keep that in mind. So everyone have a great weekend. We'll talk to you soon. Be safe.